So I think with that, I'm going to hand it back to Jack to learn about curling leaves.
All right. So this is the piece. This is the missing piece, because we have been focusing on drawing these petals and parts of plants as if they were rigid boards, right? But we're getting the arrangement and alignment of all of those rigid boards around our flowers. So by the way, if you're coming in and this is your first one, this is part of a series. Don't hang up yet, because you can go back and check out those other videos. This is a continuation of this conversation. So we've been looking at what is the geometry of a flower and how can you handle that as it rotates around both a flat flower and a cone-shaped flower. But we've been treating each of the petals as if it was just that. And now, but they twist and they curve and they curl and they do all those neat things. And how do you draw that without going nuts? You can't. So first, what I want to do is just take one last look at the rigid petal. And we're going to look at, even on the rigid petal, kind of an odd subtlety that happens as we foreshorten this. And then we're going to start curling and twisting our leaves and petals. For this, in the download that Melinda put up, there is a place to download your little leaf model. So you can think of this as a leaf or a petal, or a teeple, if you prefer. So we'll be taking this, we'll be curling it and doing all sorts of neat stuff. So just a quick review. As you remember from the previous class, there we are. Boom. So this is a drawing of a leaf. And hold on, I need to hide my meeting controls. There you go. So here's a drawing of a leaf. And what I'm doing, very exciting, is it's going from this, and then I'm turning it so that it points down. So it can point down, it can point to the side. Ooh, point down, point to the side. And so the way you draw it from the side that way is the same as you draw it that way. You just draw it pointing in a different direction, but you already knew that. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take this leaf in these different positions, and what we're going to do is we're going to look at how the leaf changes if it is, if we take the leaf and we foreshorten it. So if we take this leaf and I tilt the bottom edge towards you, what you see is that the whole leaf gets skinnier, right? But it's still the same length. My fingers on either side of this are the same distance apart, but the leaf gets skinnier. Now, if it's pointing down and I tilt up like this, right, the leaf stays the same width side to side, but it gets shorter. So let's look at that in a diagram. Up here on the top, you see as we tilt it, this leaf is getting shorter. Now, over on the bottom one, you see that as I rotate it, you see it's also getting shorter, but on the other axis. And the more you foreshorten it, the more extreme these two things become. Now, how it happens here on the looking at the leaf from the side, that's pretty intuitive. What happens here is really intuitive. The thing that gets everybody confused are these leaves right in here at the down here, sort of pointing down at the sort of lower 45-degree angle down here. There's a huge change that happens in the shape of the leaf. I'm going to enlarge those, right? And what I want you to notice is that the two halves of the leaf appear to be different shapes. Here, if I just rock it, the leaf stays symmetrical. If I rock it this way, it stays symmetrical. But if I have the leaf out at an angle towards you, right, then the angle that you see on the top part of it is different than the bottom. Let me show you that with this model here, because this is a little bit easier to understand. I am going to just sort of jump to this for a second, right? So if I've got this and I rotate it this way, my hands are the same distance apart, right? So it's not getting longer, but just the distance from here to here appears shorter. Okay, pretty straightforward. Same here. If I just tilt it this way towards you, it appears shorter. So notice when I do this, that the tip of it appears to get more pointy. See how this is more of a pointy sword than this? Okay. So a leaf at a foreshortened angle, the tip of it will appear to be more acute. Similarly, if I'm tilting it this way, the more I tilt it towards you, the more obtuse this angle becomes. So notice that this is a broad V, and this is a narrower V here. Here it's almost flat. The interesting thing happens, so notice that the red side and the blue side are the same length. But what happens if I hold it like this? Now compare the length of the blue side and the red side. You see that? This side is shorter, this side is longer. Now, what we want to do, our brain says they're the same size. Draw them the same size. But if it is tilted towards you at an angle like this, see, it's coming towards you, not straight like this. Here, they're the same size. Here, they're the same size. But down here at the corner, tilted towards you, oh, now they're different sizes. All right, so this is a big deal. So notice that, and the more that I kind of turn this, so the more that I turn it so that this angle here, this red side, gets closer to straight up and down on my screen, right? So just notice that right here, the red side is vertical. I'm going to put it over here against the side of my screen. See that? It's at the same angle. It's vertical. This side here, the closer that is to kind of going straight up, not at an angle, the shorter it's going to get. Because what I'm doing is I'm taking, if I hold this piece of cardboard here, I'm going to look at just at the square end. We'll think about this in terms of the square end. All right. If I point this edge towards the screen, towards you, you see this edge is very short. So that the more that this edge is pointing towards you, the more foreshortened it is. Now, let's take a look at this. The more I take this red edge and point it towards you, the shorter and more foreshortened it becomes. You see that? All right. So I am changing the apparent length of these two sides. Now let's think about that on this. So instead of just square sides going to a point, this is basically doing the same thing, but it's tapering. All right. So I'm going to put this on top of here. And I'm going to tilt it and turn it, right? Now take a look at the shape of this upper part versus the bottom part. You see how the upper part seems to come along and then suddenly zoom down, right? This top edge, the one closest to me here, seems to come along straight to about this point here, And from there, it's zooming down to the tip. What is happening on the bottom edge? The bottom edge is curling long and straight and tapering in there. So the tip of, so that's the confusing thing that happens in foreshortening the tip of a petal that is coming towards you at an angle, is that the two sides are going to be, one will be more foreshortened than the other. Right. How do we draw this? Let's go over to the doc cam. We haven't gotten even to the curl yet, but we will. There we go. So I have, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my leaf model and I hold it at an angle so that I am getting one side I've discovered that it's too mentally confusing to myself to hold this at an angle, then look into a camera and then draw what I'm seeing on the camera. So I'm just going to hold this in front of me at an angle where it works for me. You're going to see it so that one side of your leaf is kind of skinny. The other side seems to be broader, coming out like that. All right. So that kind of, you imagine the corners here. You're going to come out here down to a point, here down to a point. That is the way that I sort of think about the tips of petals and leaves. If it's coming towards me, I'm going to see this distortion where this shape here is different than this shape up here. The best way to start to see this is to get one of these, close one eye, move your little leaf around. If you find that your leaf is just a little bit too floppy and bendy, put it onto a rigid surface and close one eye and just move your leaf around at different angles so that you can see those curves and phenomena happening in front of you. You want to first be able to see it on the real flower or petal, or first see it on the model, be able to transfer that to paper, and then just pick up real leaves and look for the same thing. Eventually what's going to happen is you're going to start to expect this kind of distortion, and then you'll be able to see it where it happens. So if I am, but that's so that is the tricky part of drawing a flat petal or leaf. Now what we're going to do is we're going to start to curl these. So if you have a leaf model like this, what I want you to do is just like you imagine you're curling ribbon, you're going to just scissor it with your fingers a couple of times like this, and that's going to put a nice gentle curve into your leaf. So if you have a little leaf model in front of you, scissor it with your fingers a few times and curl it. And so now I have the top surface and the bottom surface of my leaf. And what I'm going to do is, the way that I draw this, first you're thinking like, oh, there is no way we're going to be able to do this. But hang on, because this is going to be super cool. What I do is I look at the shape of this top part. So the shape of this top part is that it's roughly a triangle going from a corner in here to a corner over here to a point here, right? This corner of the triangle is a little bit rounded out, right? This corner of the triangle is rounded. This corner of the triangle
goes down to a little point. Do you see how it is a really sharp point down here? So the two corners of this triangle are different shapes. So roughly I have a triangle with different sizes. I have a shorter side here. I have a longer side here, but it's a little bit more interesting than that because this side here has a rounded corner and this side here goes to more of a point. So what I'm doing is just getting myself to look at the shape of that. Now, the angle that I'm drawing this one is going to end up a little bit different than what you're seeing on the screen because when I'm doing this, I'm looking down on my leaf and drawing what I'm seeing, as opposed to looking at the screen and drawing the same view that you're seeing. If I were a little bit more mentally dexterous, I would be able to make that transition, but for right now, it's hard for me. So you're going to just have to bear with me. We're going to do this a few times, and then you're going to go like, oh, I get it. I see what you're up to. All right, so there's the triangle on the top. Now we look at the shape that is underneath that. There is a point right about here, goes to a sharp point here. Then over here, over here, there's a rounded side. We have a big bendy side on this side, and we have a shorter side down on the other end. So I have kind of a rounded side, and I have a shorter side that is going to kind of come in more straighter side, and a rounded side. And what I do is I put shape number 1 with shape number 2, the top side next to the underside. And that is the fundamentals of how I'm going to start to do this. If I hold it at a different angle, like if I hold it pointing straight towards me, it's straight across the top, right? There's two kind of pointed corners, and it's going to come to a point like that. What about the underside? The underside has rounded tops. And then it comes to a base somewhere in here, so it's doing something like that. Whoop. So you see what I'm doing? I'm getting this drawing of the curving leaf by drawing the top surface as a shape, paying a particular attention to the lengths of the sides and the angles on those corners. And then I do the same with the underside, and I put those two shapes together. Let me try this one more time with me looking at the screen. Oh no, this is too much kind of rub your tummy while patting your head for me. I'm not going to be able to do that, sorry. But let's try this angle here. I'm just going to kind of get it here. So there's a little bit of the top, right? I'm seeing a short side here. I'm seeing a long side here. There's a point, rounded corner here. So rounded here, pointy here. Then I'm seeing a big curved side, and I'm seeing, my thumb is blocking this part in here. I'm seeing a straight side that's coming up into here. So that is a leaf from that position. If I bend it even more, all right, now I've got a big curve. All right, I'm going to draw this angle. All right, I'm roughly seeing a triangle. My triangle has a short side. My triangle has a long side. Out here, it's there. It's running into my other drawing. Let's try that again. I have a triangle. My triangle has a short side. My triangle has a long side. On the short side, it has a rounded corner. On the long side, it goes to a point. I then have going out, coming down, my rounded side, and I have, and then I have my straighter side, and I'm putting those next to each other. Now I'm going to modify this just a little bit. Oh, this is kind of cool. Do you remember when we're in this, we were sort of saying we had the two sort of, these are two different shapes. This side is really curvy. This side is really straight. That's the same thing that I would be seeing if I were looking at this leaf straight, right? But if it's curled here, I'm getting this same distortion out there in the tip.
Could you push your paper just down a little bit? We didn't see that.
Oh,
top.
I'm sorry.
Thanks.
Thank you. Please call me on that whenever I do that. Now, sometimes when people are drawing using this approach, looking at the shape of the top, the shape on the bottom, they'll get a drawing that looks like this. They'll say, all right, I've got my leaf shape here. I've got my short side. I've got my long side. All right, and here is that. Now I'm going to put the next side next to it. It's got the curved side, and then it has the straighter side. Here in this drawing, I have made a visual mistake, but it's a subtle one. And what it has to do is, see if you can spot it. Take a look at this bottom side here. Here, the leaf disappears underneath here, right? You see this back edge disappearing here, and then we see it reappear up here, right? Now you know that it's all that same edge, so it has to be a continuous line between those two. This one, in order to get from here to then here, behind the edge of this leaf, the leaf edge would have to curl up like that.
Jack, could you move your model just a little bit? Thank you.
This is where I'm going off. And to help us understand that, that's where your plastic bag comes in. And what I'm going to ask you to do is to, on your plastic bag, I'm going to draw 1/2 of the leaf. And now I'm going to draw the other half of the leaf. I was lucky, they came up kind of symmetrical. Now here is my center vein. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to cut this out. Here's my leaf. Flat, it's got 2 straight edges, but curled. Look at those beautiful, almost sine waves that the edges make. So you see that the edge that is close to you makes this nice gentle curve, comes up and comes down, right? The one in the back does the same thing. Notice that the curves are not identical. So you can have different angles on the curves. Like this is a big broad one, and on the other side, it's kind of coming up to a narrower point. So it doesn't have to, you don't have to make two identical curves, but notice that the close side and the far side are, here's one done on slightly thicker film, all right? If I do this, I've got a smooth curve on either side. And in the middle where the center vein is, notice that that's also a little gentle curve, right? So here is this gentle curve through the middle. So the middle vein starts one side, comes out the other. If it's curved and you had X-ray vision, you'd see that as an arc. Now, depending on how you're curling it, how you're holding it, the side that is close to you, there will be a gentle curve. You'll see a nice curve on the other side, but again, they're not the same curves. So what I want to do is, instead of have to visualize this far side, let's actually draw this as this sort of three curve technique. All right, let's say you've got your center vein that's going to do this. And on one side, you have a curve that comes up, and it's going to come down. And into here. And on the other side, you've got a curve that is going to come up and back down. I know it looks like a weird figure eight, not a leaf at this point. The reason is that there's one other line that is not made by one of the edges. It is the line that is made between these two top sides. Actually, let me put a darker surface behind here. You see that top edge right here? That's not made by one of the edges of the leaf. It is made by the surface of the leaf curling through the air. So if I'm just drawing the edges of the leaf, this surface up here doesn't have a line that is connecting it. So I'm going to put one more in from this high point here to this high point here. Now watch this. Check this out. Melinda, should this leaf curl, if I'm holding it here, do you want it curling towards you or curling away from you?
Away.
All right. So that means, oh, actually, I'm going to, let me do this. I made a visual mistake in here in explaining this, because if this, here's what we'll do, is here we go. We're going to come up. We're going to go down to this point here. We're not going to draw in our center vein yet. I'm going to first start with the leaf edge on one side. And now I'm going to draw the leaf edge on the other side. And if I draw a line across the top of this, and it's curling away from me, all I'm going to do is erase this little line right in here. Leaf that's curling away from me. If I wanted it to curl towards me, I would put this line back in and erase this line. So do you see how, but this back edge, I want it to kind of continue up and be able to be a plausible curve here. You see how this one doesn't do that? So if I were drawing this leaf, what I really would want to do is think of this back edge. What are you doing behind the scenes? You're probably curling around something like this. So yeah, so this edge here wants to come up to here. Now it works. Doot, 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 doot. That one comes around there. I erase that. So I want to have my close edge make sense with what my far edge is doing. Now, what about the center vein? So if the leaf is flat and curling like this model here, or if it's flat and curling like this model here, then the center vein is going to come up to the center of this space here. Let's say this is curling towards me. It's going to come up here to the center. It's going to aim towards here and come down here. So my center vein also wants to kind of make sense. Some leaves, though, are shaped slightly boat-like, where the or many leaves are, instead of being flat, you'll find many leaves, the edges are slightly rocked up. So if you did a cross section through the leaf, you'd find that the leaf shape was something like this. So if that's the case, the center vein is lower than the two edges. Edge, edge, center vein is lower. Then what you're going to do is you're going to bring this top surface edge down to the center vein and then back up to the edge on the other side. So if I want to take this one and make it be curling towards me, I'm going to erase these lines in here. So here is side. I'm going to put some shading in on the underside of this to make it so here is the top surface. So if my leaf is flat, I have it flat across the top. If my leaf is boat shaped, this top edge is going to be boat shaped. I'm going to see that V. So the good news about this is you don't have to memorize a whole bunch of formulas here. Or when I'm out there in the field, I'm not kind of going like this is going like this, and this is going like this, and that's like that, and then I'm not constructing leaves using this approach. But what I want to be able to do is I want to know that these leaves have this consistent shape, right? These edges have this consistent shape. And so when I go back to this leaf model here, here's my leaf. I'm going to draw what I do is I draw one shape, I put it next to the next shape. And then I make sure that this line here, can I, if I were to draw this leaf as a transparent thing, would that make sense? Does that line up? So if I put my line out here too far and go like, no, that doesn't work. That's just a good reminder. I want to then sort of imagine that my leaf has turned transparent and I could see through my leaf. Does it still make sense? So I do that for the side that's closest to me. I'll draw that in red. I can see the entire arc of the side that's closest to me, right? That's easy to visualize. What I want to then do is get the other side, and it's going to tuck up in. I want to make sure that it points to where I'm going to start to see the far side edge again. So this far side edge is tucking up in here, and then I see it reappear here. And I just want to make sure that the point where I do show it reappearing, that, you know, this is going to roughly point up to there. For my top edge of my leaf, I am going to I'm going to draw it. If it's flat like this paper model, all I'm doing is connecting this high point here with this high point here. And the center vein would be coming down here. And at the top, if I have the center vein come up and hit the top like this at an angle like that, it feels like somebody has folded the leaf, because then it'll be doing this around the other side. If on the other hand, as my center vein comes up, I'm going to just curve it a little bit, arc it. It helps round over the top of this leaf. So do you see how right in here where I've got my pencil tip down, this line is coming up straight and I've curved it down. Otherwise, it looks like it's just something that's been folded. And something that is, take a look at this. I'm going to hold up a so here's just a little piece of paper, and it has a vein on it. As that vein gets towards the top of the paper, do you see how it comes in straight and right at the end it's curving over? Well, let's kind of hold this in the same direction as this. So you see how this is coming up straight, and then right where you kind of go over that edge, which I would, there we go. Right? As you come over that edge, it curls down. Right? So you want your line to do the same thing. Your line's going to come up straight, and then we're going to curl over the top. If your line comes up, if I fold this, now look at it. The line comes up straight to the edge because it's folded. So if this line doesn't curve at the top, it'll make this part of your leaf feel folded. Now, I'm going to continue that line down here. That's where it would show up on the underside. now let's take a look at this same leaf. If instead of it being flat in cross-section, if it's a V-shaped leaf in cross-section. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to erase some of the core of my leaf here. And this time, what's going to happen is from this high point here and this high point here, I am going to come into a point that is lower down here. And so my top edge of my, actually I'm going to make it a little bit higher than that. I'm going to put it right up here. All right, so my top edge of my leaf here is going to come down to this point. And the top edge here is going to go from this low point up here to this edge. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to curve this line here, and so it's going to straight and then curve into this. There's the top of my leaf. So if the leaf is V-shaped like this, and you're looking at it from the underside, you're not going to see as much as the far side of the leaf because it is foreshortened. See how this surface is foreshortened is turned towards you, but because this surface here is pointing away from you, it appears to be shorter. And that's what's going to happen with the widths of the two sides of this leaf. So as this vein comes down here, this side here that is turned at an angle away from you is shorter. So your brain wants to make the vein be right in the middle of the undersurface of this leaf. But if your leaf is V-shaped in cross-section, that is going to be foreshortening one of those surfaces. Now, if at this point you're saying to yourself, whoa, there is so much that I'm going to have to remember here, right? Because I've got, these shapes here being different sizes. That's a nuisance. This one is now foreshortened towards me. I'm seeing this one now is larger out here. And the same thing's happening on the underside. How am I going to have to remember all these things in order to draw a leaf? I just want to draw a leaf. The good news is the plant is sitting right in front of you. And so what you do is all the answers are going to be on the leaf of the plant in front of you. And whatever the leaf in front of you is doing, I'm going to pay my attention to that and just copy what it is. But if I know that things like I may not be seeing the vein, oh, sorry, I'm going to turn this way. This will be more clear. Yeah, there we go. All right, so here's this vein on the underside of my leaf. Sorry for having that folded this way, just to confuse everybody. But if this is, say, a tent-shaped, that the leaf is V-shaped like this, and you're looking at it at an angle underneath, you're not going to see as much of one side as the other because one of those sides is going to be foreshortened away from you. That means you're not going to be seeing the center vein of that leaf running right down the middle of the leaf. Your brain wants to draw it this way. Your brain wants to say, okay, I've got, some leaf shape here, but the vein wants to go down the very middle of this, and the vein wants to then come down the middle of this. Your brain wants that side to be the same side as that. Your brain wants this side to be the same size as that. But if you know that on a V-shaped leaf, or a sort of an upwardly tented leaf, that this sort of distortion is going to come into effect, you have a chance to look for it. And even if you don't remember, like one of these sides gets bigger, if you just remember that the middle vein may not be in the middle of that leaf surface that you're drawing, and you look at the real leaf for the answer, you just copy whatever the leaf is doing. But you now know that, like, I've done a ton of drawings where plants have these tented leaves, and because my brain wants that vein to be in the middle, I have a tendency to put that vein in the middle. Unless I know, like, oh, there's something really funky I know with these, I need to look for it here, and then I've got a chance of getting it. Let me do another one at a slightly different angle. All right, so I'm going to draw, say, a leaf like this. It's going to have a tented top, and it's going to be pointed towards you more. So, by the way, I wanted my leaf, I've discovered that if you fold your leaf up like a tent, it then no longer wants to curl over. So you may have discovered that yourself. You're like, why don't we just take this paper model and fold it up? So that's why I'm not doing that with this paper model. But let's say we had a leaf that was, it's going to be pointing towards us more, maybe just a little bit off to the side. Look at the difference in those two surfaces, right? I mean, a really wonderful kind of long edge here, short edge here, right? In here. It's a big side and a small side, even on this flat thing. So my the top of this, I'm not going to draw as a flat thing. I'm going to draw this as a V-shaped. In the top edge of it, that's where you're going to see your V. So my center vein is going to go closer to this side. We're going to come down to it here and up to it here. I'm going to have my big curve side, and this edge here, that's what I want to kind of tuck up into here, and my central vein is going to come here. So you see what I'm doing here? I've got two sides that are not the same width. I've got two surfaces here that are not the same width. This big surface is turned towards me, so I'm seeing it. I'm seeing it as a big side. That the other surface is foreshortened. It's made smaller. So here we go. I block that in with my light pencil, and now I'm going to see, there's my mark pen. I am going to draw along this edge, and because this is the edge that is the closest to me, right up in here, you're going to see me. It's further away here, lighter line. As I come right up into here, my line is going to get heavier. See that nice heavy line? That heavier line is going to feel like it is closer to you. So I want people to say, like, oh, that surface of the leaf is closer. Here is this further away side. And we're going to come down to here, the center vein, and up to the other side. Here is and in this, I'm putting in a lighter line because I want that heavy line to pop that surface forward. And I'm going to come here. the top curves over. Now that's interesting. See how, even though I was telling everybody to curve that in, notice that in my line here, see how that comes sort of straight, more straight into that edge, and I didn't curve it as much. Notice how that flattens that little section of that drawing out a little bit. It makes this point right in here a little bit visually confusing. Interesting. So even though I was trying not to do that, we got this sort of lucky lesson in this that I made that mistake, and so you can sort of see how that looks just a little bit off. I'm now going to put a little bit of color on this. I'll have a little bit more fun with it. Very often on the top surface of a leaf, it's going to be a darker green because the chlorophyll is closer to the surface. You've got the layers in a leaf. The top surface is where most of your chloroplasts are. And the bottom layer has this sort of palisade layer of sort of more structural cells. And I'm going to make, so the top here, brighter green. I think I'm going to leave some kind of lighter in here. I'm going to lift out a little bit of this. Make this, imagine that the sun is coming here. It's going to make this surface darker. It's going to make this surface here that's kind of coming down here, but this little area in here is getting more of some light, so I'm going to have some light striking that. On the underside, I'm going to have a paler shade of green, but also if light is coming through this like this, if you are seeing a leaf and it's actually backlit, it will be much more yellow. It'll have a much more yellow-green kind of glowing through it. So I'm going to imagine a little bit of backlighting in here. Maybe a little bit less in there. There's one final little tweak that I'm going to make on this, and that is that this edge of the leaf that is pointing towards you, I'm going to go back to my piece of cardboard example here. Notice that you see this edge of the cardboard and you don't see this edge of the cardboard. A petal or a leaf, as thin as it is, actually has some thickness to it. And so if I suggest that on an edge that is coming towards me, that can really help give a leaf a lot more of a sense of dimension to it. So I'll show you a little trick that I often use when I've drawn a leaf and I want to make it look like this is the edge that is coming towards you. On that surface that is coming towards you, in a number of places, I'll just take a white gel pen and I will kind of come along places on that edge and just put in a little bit of a highlight. You see how that kind of looks like, oh, the light is catching that surface that has turned, that there actually is an edge that is going up that is catching light, and then the rest of the surface doesn't get that. This, if I do it on the far side, that's not going to work. And I'm not going to do it here on this edge very much because this edge is going to be pointing up away from me. But on this edge that is pointing towards me, I pop that in. You can do that even on a, let's say you've got a, just a simple little leaf drawing Right, so you've got a little leaf drawing, and you want it to, you don't want it to be totally flat, you want it just to be turned a little bit. We'll do the same thing here. I am going to just put a little bit of green on my leaf. I don't put my gel pen on when it's super dry. I mean, sorry, when it's super wet. I'm going to let it dry just a little bit. And look at this. I'm now going to, we'll come down a little bit closer on that. This is fun. I am going to, with my gel pen, just kind of come up over that, tap my finger on it so it kind of fades it out. So I picked up a little bit of that paint on my finger so that that line faded out. This other one is going to come up in here. You see some of the ink line, some of this other line showing through. And if I want this edge just to be turned towards you a little bit, look at the big pop that I get. Just, I'm going to take this right along this edge here. Go a little bit here, a little bit there, right along here. And we've now turned that edge towards you ever so slightly. Another thing you can do with gel pens that it's fun is that gel pens, you can actually change the color by, once it's dry, if I just take a little bit of watercolor and I can tint that vein light yellow or some other color. So you don't have to have a bunch of different colors of gel pens. But this little highlight along the edge there does a lot just to say like, oh, look, that side's tilting towards you. And I'm going to go grab one of my field guides off the shelf here. And as you look through this, you can see me using this trick all over the place. Like, you know, like look right in here. You see that little white highlight right there along that edge? That's just gel pen coming right in there. Tap, tap with my finger. Going to here on this little trillium, right up in here, this edge that is coming towards me, see that little gel pen right up in there on those bounces, right in there. And you see it right in there on that edge. That's gel pen just turning that edge up towards you just a little bit. So we can find one more example. Oh, like here's very much like the little demo that I just did. This leaf has a little bit of gel pen right along the edge of it. So it's not, you're not looking straight down on it. You just got it turned, oh, a little bit. That's my secret weapon for making a leaf look better. See if there's any other really kind of good examples of that. Yeah, the veins and things that you're seeing in here, that's just gel pen on top of this other stuff. So you can have a, oh yeah, there you go. Right there, that leaf, hold on a second, my screen has frozen. Oh, no, it hasn't. That was my other hand. Let's see, where are we? There we are. So you see that little bit of gel pen right along the edge there. Does a lot to, or here on this leaf here, I wanted this edge to come towards you just a little bit. So I hit it with some gel pen. That could have been a little bit more subtle. It would have looked a little bit better if that was a little bit more subtle. Should have tapped that just a little bit more with my finger. Again, all those veins, that's just gel pen, let it dry, and then tint it with another color. The trick then, my go-to trick for curling leaves is I close one eye and I draw the shape next to the other shape. So number one, you're going to close one eye. You're going to draw your little shape. You're going to make sure that the corners of it have the right shape. Are they rounded or pointed? And that the edges, is it a long one or a short one? Then as you put in the other side, you're going to make sure that, especially on the side that's tucking up underneath, is it pointing in the right direction? Is it pointing off towards that other corner? That's where you want it to go. And the last little piece is just to remember that if the leaves are kind of V-shaped, you're going to have some interesting things going on with the apparent sizes of the leaf surface, whether you're looking at the top or the bottom, on either side of that vein. So don't expect the vein to be right in the middle. With that bag of tricks and looking at the leaf in front of you, remember, when in doubt, believe the leaf. When in doubt, believe the leaf. And the leaf is always going to be right about what the leaf is doing. But remember, you're going to be coming to this with some expectations of like how this leaf should look. You're not going to draw how the leaf should look. We're going to be able to draw how it looks, because we're not just sort of drawing a simple leaf model that's in our head. We've got that real leaf in front of us, but we were able to get around expectations that our brains have of how it should look by knowing that these are places like, how's that angle going to change? How's the length of that going to change? We know to look for those, and so be able to get them. So your challenge between now and the next time we meet is to go out and find a few leaves, or you can get yourself a flower with some different curly petals and draw some curled, twisted leaf shapes. You can also make yourself a number of different models out of clear plastic and just sort of take them and twist them and spend some time. Put this, again, I'm a great believer in putting manipulatable objects on the back of your toilet seat tank. And just as you're sitting there with nothing else to do, just be looking at this. Let yourself be surprised by interesting things. Like, look at that. Like, oh, what about that? All right, that's interesting. Oh, that angle right there. Look, where we come up into it and then back out. Could a blade of grass do that? Oh, yes, a blade of grass could do that. And so I want to be able to expect that. And once I can sort of see it with this, then I can look at these plants around me. So find yourself some real things, play with some models. And these twisting and curling leaves are going to lose their, the like, oh no factor of like, how would you even, right? You're just like, I'm just going to copy it. I'm going to close one eye. I'm going to copy a shape that's next to a shape. I'm going to put those together. And the real little details of these things, if you roughly get that right, you're fine, because on real plants, sometimes, one side is a little bit bigger than the other and they just do all sorts of funky things. You then take just sort of the natural variation of and how weird things can look in nature. Like, leaves aren't always this perfectly symmetrical thing, very rarely. So if your drawing's a little bit off, you can blame it on the plant. And have some fun with that. play with some of these where the leaf or the petal isn't an integral part of a whole other drawing, so that you can just mess with the foreshortening and perspective. And then in the next, when we meet next week, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be drawing an iris, and we're going to be taking twisting, curling petals, and we're going to be sticking them into a very specific geographic, geometric framework. And so those, the structure, the framework will come together with the twisting leaf and curling petal, and you'll get a very organic looking iris. But for this week, I really suggest find some just fun leaves. Just walk out and kind of like, oh, this is a good one, right? Look, it does this, and play with that. And if you got yourself a gel pen, go nuts, go nuts. Right? Just do tons of stuff with it. And what will probably happen is you'll probably overdo the gel pen, and that's fine, right? Because, and you got to get that out of your system somewhere, right? So on these little studies, just go nuts with your gel pen. And if you kind of go overkill on the gel pen, this will be the perfect place to have done that. And then you'll be in the perfect position to then add gel pen with some subtlety instead of overwhelming your face gel pen. I hope you have a ton of fun with this. And everybody, thank you so much for being with us today. What I'm going to do now is jump over to the community cam. If anybody has follow-up questions or pages that you want to show from journals entries that you've done, or pages from today's class, or other drawings of curling petals that you wanted to share with folks, we're going to have an opportunity to do that now. And it'll be fun to kind of check in with everybody and see what has been going on all around the world. So we are going to allow people to unmute themselves. Just did that. So you're now able to unmute yourself. And I'm going to start with Heidi. Thank you so much for being with us. And I'm going to remove my spotlight, and you can unmute yourself. Heidi, you're currently muted. You're currently muted, so we don't hear what you're saying. Let's see, have we allowed folks to unmute themselves? I think.
Yes.
Yes.
John?
Yeah, yes.
What is the book, the title of the book you were showing with the drawings?
Oh.
Please,
Well,
please.
Put the link in.
This is the Laws Field Guide to the Sierra Nevada.
I'm sorry, what?
So Heidi, I just wanted to let you know that we were not able to hear what you were saying because you were muted there. Right.
Yeah, I put the link in the chat for whoever's wondering what the book is. So you can just look in the chat right there.
Okay.
Okay, except I don't even see it. The Laws
The chat.
Field Guide, Sierra
If you
Nevada.
click,
Okay.
if you click the link that I just put in there, it'll take you directly to Jack's book on his website.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, what it is, it's a field guide to the natural history of the Sierra Nevada, from everything to the bears and big critters to this is the mosquito that sucked all my blood. That's why I have it sucking the blood out of me. And it's lichens, it's wildflowers, it's insects and fish and all the different sorts of stuff that you see when you're kind of romping around in the mountains. It's organized to be kind of intuitive. So like if you can count how many petals the flower has and how and what color it is, you'll be able to identify it. So let's say you found a 5-petaled red pink flower. You would go to the flower icon. You'd go to the colored tabs at that height that are red pink, and you would spin until those, and then you go up into the corner until you got to the number 5, and there you are in 5-petaled red and pink flowers.
Wow.
And,
Thank you.
So that's kind of fun. This is what happens when dyslexics design field guides.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
My name is Jeffy. It's a pleasure and it was nice to see part of your class.
Jeffy, thank you so much for being with us today. I hope you really enjoyed it.
I did. Thank you.
So I'm going to remove my spotlight, and if you would like to share anything, let's jump over to LK and then Ivea. Hey there, it's good to have you with us again.
So, here I drew all these leaves.
Oh, great, great, great. Yeah. Thinking about the way that those two edges line up, the more you focus on that, like that one in the top right hand corner, really, the curling edge of one really lines up with that of the other, and that's what makes that drawing work so well. I wanted to encourage you to get a real leaf now, and we're going to be playing with that. And I think you're going to see that all these lessons come into play with a week of just messing around with this idea. You'll be totally ready for the iris next week. This is great to see. Thank you for sharing that.
Also, I have drawn irises before, and they're really fun here.
Mhm.
I drew this like last week. They're really fun to draw. They're like curly, very curly.
Oh, check that out. And I also like how you are, I can see the botanist in you, finding out. Oh, you asked the great, so you are paying so much attention. So Avea, you got to check this out. So LK here has, she's dissected this, and she's asking, where is the pistil? And that's the when people start taking apart an iris, you have to know a ton about botany to be able to notice that there's nothing that is jumping out that looks like a pistil. You're absolutely right. You go through the flower, and where on earth is your pistil? So check this out. You are drawing a plant with a petaloid pistil. A petaloid pistil. So what that means is that the pistil of this thing looks like a petal. And you know those little kind of arching curved things with little flags on the tip of them that stick out over that cool sepal that has the big yellow stripe in it?
Yeah.
That's actually the pistil. And I had the same experience that you did of like, I'm looking through this thing and I can't find a pistil. It's this crazy petaloid pistil. And so I'll make a little diagram here on my piece of paper. Let me share screen with you. Add spotlight here. And I'm going to jump over to this. Oops, wrong thing.
So you're right. There's sort of in side view, there are these big floppy structures that stick down that have that yellow stripe in them. And then there are these long, between those, there are these long elements that stick up, and 3 of those. So there's one other big floppy thing on the other side. So there's 3 of these long things that stick up. These ones that stick up, those are actually the petals. And the ones that are these floppy ones on the side, those are the sepals. And the pistil is this crazy arch-shaped thing with a little flag that sticks out on top of the sepal. So these little guys, And in cross section, they're curved, they're sort of hollowed on the inside, and on the tips of them, they often have these little flags that stick out here. They're super cool. And partway down it, you'll see there's a little spot, there's a little flap that sticks out partway down the underside of this tube, about in there, and that is that's where the stigma is. And the style is the rest of this whole stalk that comes down. But it looks absolutely nothing like any pistil you have ever seen here. So the fact that you wrote in your notes there, "Where's the pistil?" is not evidence that, like, you don't know botany, you don't know where the pistil is. It's that you know exactly what you're talking about, what you should be looking for, and that you've come up against this sort of great, it's one of these sort of great flower fooler things where it's got this pistil that looks like a petal. Isn't that cool? Oh, you're currently muted. There you go.
Also, even the stigmas were kind of like, the stamens were like hidden behind like the petal too.
Yes, yeah, the stamen tucks up underneath the pistil. And so usually what happens is as the bumblebee is going down pushing back down there to get to that stamen, it first rubs up against the pistil and then gets down a little bit further down that same tube, and then you run into the stamen. Yeah, the stamen are hidden, so you really had to look hard. And this is evidence that you're really, really observing carefully. Avea, did you have any sort of comments on these sort of botanical notes here?
I'd also, like, the first thing I'd noticed was that question about where is the pistil. And so I was immediately like, now I want to look at that same flower. And so just hearing about the petaloid pistil, like, I want to examine all of the irises now. And one thing I was really, really appreciating, LK, is that I see that you'd put numbers next to things. So like with the stamens, I see you put a 3, and then same with the corolla and the sepal. Like, I just noticed that you're putting numbers and words in your pictures, and that is also like a super botanist thing to do, is to be able to count those parts, especially because when things are in patterns of 3, that can be really significant, telling you whether it's a monocot or a dicot. When things are in patterns of 3, then it belongs to monocotyledon branches of the thing, so that it has one seed leaf, and that perfectly matches that particular pattern. But that's a whole other rabbit hole. But I just wanted to say, I really, really, yes. I want to go on an adventure with you because I love your questions. So that was it's really fun to see your page.
Yeah, and this is such evidence of having looked super hard. This is the way we observe, and we're so excited to see that. Thank you so much for sharing that. I'm now going to jump back to the gallery view. If anybody else wants to share, I see. Let's see. We're going to first jump to Jennifer, and we have Walters and Ray Bonto and Nicholas. If I can remember to do that in this order, we'll see. Jennifer, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you very much for coming, for teaching, I should say. Basically, I am a science art maker teacher. So part of this is how can I go and translate all of this knowledge and actually be decent at also teaching nature journaling. So I tend to take a lot of notes along the lines of both what you're sharing about teaching as well as, what's going on with the plant. And cool. Like, so I will go and color code my notes, like from last Saturday, I go through, and anything that is a element of metadata to add got highlighted in yellow. Anything that was a inspirational quote got highlighted in sort of a sunset orange and magenta.
Oh yeah, you've got believe the leaf. And if your drawing's off, blame the leaf, blame the plant. This is great. When you take any class, if you go through that with the perspective of then you're going to turn around to teach that material, your ability to remember things will be much, much better than somebody who just looks at it for their own consumption. Because the intensity that you have to pay attention if you're going to then turn around and teach something, that goes up to 11.
So, yeah. Let's just say lots and lots of metadata notes.
That's cool. That is so cool.
So,
oh,
thank you very
fantastic.
much.
Well, are you on my list of nature journaling mentors and teachers?
I didn't even know that there was a list.
Yes.
So I will see what I can do to get myself added.
So what I want you to do is shoot me an email. And if you have a website, you don't need a website. If you have a website, give me your website, give me the city and state, country where you kind of is your hub. If you're teaching online classes or people would want to sort of find as kind of a naturalist near them, and we'll put you in as like, in this city, you can find this person. And then I could either connect that to your email or to your web page. And then people would be able to find you if they are local and they're looking for somebody to help them kind of get going with nature journal.
Thank you very much. I will shoot you that email.
Well, and thank you so much for sharing that. I love the way you are color coding those notes, sort of going back. Could we see that one last time?
Oh, yeah. This is the purpose of nature journaling from purpose of birding journaling from the Audubon Society one that you taught.
So what I want to point out to here, or to folks here, is that notice the way that Jennifer she's sort of going back over the notes, putting boxes around things, starring things, highlighting with a watercolor stroke over related things. This is what we call metacognition. So she's going back over it later and thinking about what the lessons were and picking out what was really salient for her and highlighting that, right? So for instance, this idea, mistakes are okay. She's got that big, bold, and highlighted so that it stands out. So the process of going in here and highlighting that is going to make that idea stick better in your head. And also when you look through it later on, your eye jumps to those sorts of details. But if you do this just when you finish a set of notes, you kind of go back through it and you give it this extra layer of structure. That review is going to help these ideas stick in your head. So that's wonderful.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And Melinda, did you want to share anything with that?
No, I was just going to say, yeah, going back and, when I teach nature journaling, I've learned that, reviewing what you've received in a class or taught in a class and coming back at the end and just saying, this is the recap, just like you did, Jack, today. You did a recap on, okay, this is the method. And I wrote that down too. It's really helpful because there is a lot of information in one lesson, and coming back and doing a recap, that's a really quick way to make sure that you're not going to forget this valuable information that you've spent an hour or 2 hours of your life watching for. And the other idea of when you are learning something with the intention of teaching it, you're going to be focusing it, you're going to be highly attuned to that information. So I think that that's a really great tip that Jack is sharing with you. And, remember that with your students. It's more important to reinforce one subject or one idea than it is to give 10 new ideas in one sitting. So really, getting practice and reinforcing. So any nature journal teachers that are out there, all of these great activities that Jack teaches and that are in his books, it's not a one and done. You can apply those activities to so many different places. And every time you apply it, it becomes more than just the activity itself. It brings you this connection to nature, to see the world in a different way. And that's why I teach nature journaling, is to help people see the world in a different way. And the journal is this amazing tool that we can use to facilitate that. So yes, those of you who are educators, check out Jack's Wednesday Nature Educators Forum. And if it's not in your time zone, all of those are recorded and you can find them on johnmuirlaws.com. So I'll put some more links in there so you can come back and check out all of Jack's resources. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Melinda. And be sure to check out Melinda's classes. She's such an incredibly both soulful, insightful, and supportive mentor and coach for the nature journaling that you're doing. You'll be really moved and inspired by her courses. Spark in Nature. Maybe we can put also just put the link to your website in there.
Sure.
So really want to encourage people to check that out. And just jumping back to what we just saw there with the kind of going back and adding some little notes and highlighting things. This is the Ebbinghaus forgetting curve. And what this is, at first just looks like some crazy jumble, but just start by paying attention to the black line. At the end of this class, if you took everything you learned from this class and called that 100%, whatever you have retained at the end of this class, within 30 minutes, half of that is gone. Within 1 hour, you have less than 40% of that material in your head. And at the end of a month, hardly any of that information remains behind. Why is it that this happens? Our brains are incredibly powerful forgetting machines. And that's one reason why we take notes. But within the first 30 minutes, if you go back and you review what you just did, for instance, you go back and like we just saw, you get out your highlighter or your watercolor kit to highlight things, and you kind of put boxes around the key points and you review those and you mess with it just a little bit. And it doesn't have to take a lot of time, but just within the first 30 minutes of having learned something cool, you go back and you review those things. As you're trending down and your brain is forgetting, it pops back up to 100% and starts to again go down from there. But notice with just this first one review within 30 minutes, now, silence, telephone. Sorry about that, everybody. So now what happens is, instead of after a month, if you did nothing else than that first review, at the end of a month, you would have a little bit less than 40% of the material left in your head versus about 20%. So by that one little review within that first 30 minutes, you just got your brain to remember more than 10% of that material. If, however, before the hour is up again, you just sat down with that stuff a second time. So these are just like, this is just, for a couple of minutes, you just kind of look back at the notes, and you just intentionally review it. That's that second repetition. And notice that those first two happen within an hour. Now look at what happens to the forgetfulness curve. As if you did nothing else, you're now going to retain more than 40% of that material. So
I want to encourage everybody, definitely give yourself that first repetition, that second repetition, right? If you look at this 3 times in the next hour, you're going to be retaining about 55% of that stuff. And one other, a day later, or between 1 day and between 6 days later, and then it flattens out at around 80%. So the bad news is our brains forget. The good news is that if you intentionally review whatever it is that you're doing, so let's say you went out into the field and you described bird songs in your journal, you then go back and review it again. You do that a few times that first day. Just flip that journal open, get in the habit of just looking back through some recent journal entries. Boom, 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 right? And what you're doing is you're giving yourself these Ebbinghaus resets. This is the Ebbinghaus forgetfulness curve. He's the researcher who figured this out. So what you're doing is you're giving yourself Ebbinghaus resets for that information. And each time you do that, you are pushing your forgetfulness curve higher. So again, if you never forgot anything, you would just stay flatlined at 100%, right? So the higher you can get this thing to flatline out towards the top of the graph, the better off you are. And you do that by reviewing your notes. And the first time you do it, kind of highlight things or get in there and draw little icons, happy faces or big googly eyes, looking at the things that are the most interesting and significant to you. So just what you're showing there with those notes just sort of reminded me of the Ebbinghaus forgetfulness curve. And so I thought I would just share that with everybody here. Now, we are going to jump over to, I think it was Walters was next. That's right. And spotlighting you. Good to see you. Do adventures continue with long-tailed ducks?
No, this is the same ones I shared last time, but there is something different with this page now. I was out today. We were bird watching together with I was going on a field trip together with an ornithologist. So, and whilst I was doing that, whilst we were driving in the car, I had my journal with me. So I asked him the questions that I had written down. So I can, it's usually I write down the questions and I get home and I just put the journal down and continue with my studies and don't have time to look up the questions. But now that I had time and I found that the tail is actually for display, mainly the long tail, and that they actually do not nest in Sweden or Norway, and neither in Arctic. They nest in Russian tundra. So that was interesting to find that I had these examples in my mind. Where should they nest? But actually they're on the very opposite side. They go on a very different place to nest. And they also, one interesting fact I found out, they start nesting in June, and that's very, very late. And that's because in the Russian tundra, that's when it starts to get a bit warmer for them to rest, for them to nest. So that was interesting.
Fun. And I also, I love that you, if we didn't write these things down, we wouldn't get as curious, and then we wouldn't be doing the follow-ups. It'd just be like, oh, cool, long-tailed duck. But then your curiosity chain there, your question chain, pulled out these really cool questions. You came up with some possible hypotheses, and then you took the next step to follow up by, you can do this through research on your own, interviewing experts. That is really cool. That is so cool. I'm going to suggest that in there where you kind of write the answers to some of those, you might to kind of note the source. So say, according to, such and such a person,
okay,
right?
Yeah.
Because then what we do is, as scientists, we keep track of our sources, right? So if I read this in this study,
that's different than, I saw this on YouTube, or, whatever it is. So we can kind of keep track of when we kind of learn cool things. The more that we also track those sources, it allows you to kind of remember, kind of keep track of your own epistemology. How do you know what you know? And what is the evidence for that? Here, that's great. This whole long-tailed duck adventure that you went on is just so exciting. And if people didn't catch this before, I'm going to be posting a recent workshop where we got to see the first part of the long-tailed duck adventure. So this is the follow-up to that.
Yeah, and one more thing about the thing you said about the bird songs. So I recently watched one of your videos that told how can you write the bird songs down, and I kind of tried it. Like right here also, I was catching the long-tailed ducks, and then something in the dunes started to sing, and I had also a couple of pages back tried it, and then I was going out yesterday, and I heard another song, and it was like an instinct. I pulled out my journal and I started to just sketch the bird songs, and it's amazing how one bird, each time I kind of listen to it, I write it down, then maybe sketch some other bird and stuff, and then I listen to it again, but I hear it, I think it's pretty much the same bird. It's the same bird, but it sounds a bit different. How many songs can one bird have? Like you see, this all is one bird, so it's all basic. So
yeah.
Three notes, and then it goes like down, but all these go up, these go straight, these go down, and they all kind of sound each time a bit different. So that's really interesting.
That is really interesting. There are a number of birds that have what we call a repertoire, and so the bird will one kind of bird will have these different variations of the song that it sings, and something like with here in the one that kind of does that close to where I am right now. We hear Hutton's videos doing this all the time, but also there's some cool research on song sparrows. And our song sparrows, the older song sparrows have in their repertoire more songs. And the females, as they're kind of listening around to these different bird singings, they're not just looking for the quality of a bird's song. The females are also kind of like, you just sing one thing. Nah, I don't think so. And they're selecting males. One of their selection factors is the size of the bird's repertoire. And that's crazy. So it's neat. Yeah, you'll hear these, and when you're listening to those things, so a couple things happen. Is the next time you hear that bird sing, you'll be walking down the trail, and then boom, right? Like that's my bird, right? And that song just pops out to you. And then you start to pick up these variations in it. We had a wonderful, one of my early mentors was a fellow at the California Academy of Sciences named Luis Baptista. And Luis, just kindest, most wonderful person you'd want to meet. He studied these song dialects of the white-crowned sparrows. And the white-crowned sparrows, they're these sort of regional dialects. And he was walking out one day outside the California Academy of Sciences, here, the big sort of science institution in San Francisco. And he goes like, there's this white-crowned sparrow that's singing. And he's like, that's just not right. So he ran out and got mist nets. They caught that bird. And he was able to tell that this one, it was singing the wrong dialect. And by doing some careful measurements on it, they discovered that actually it was a subspecies that should have been up in Alaska and was just way out of place. but the clue came from the music that it was making. That's fun. I'm
Yeah.
so excited that
Yeah.
you're having fun with those bird songs.
Yeah, I actually a couple of years ago here in Latvia there was some like a same kind of research, but except we don't on I think it was on flycatchers and warblers. So because our region isn't very big, so not there aren't like different songs over the country of like the same species of birds, but they were doing some research that in the birds somehow adapt their songs also and put in some syllables and something like that. I don't remember specifically, but from the other birds that are around them. So for example, some of the warbler species have much red starts around them. Some of the birds, other warbler species have starlings around them. So they kind of put their songs together. If I remember correctly, that was also an interesting research that I did here on in Latvia. So
That's
those
really
bird songs, that's a thing. That's a real nice thing. Yeah.
Yep. I don't know if you've been following some of the Nature Journal Connection videos that I've been making, but I'm going to have one
Yes.
coming out maybe next week's, I think, is or maybe the week after that is going to be on recording birdsong.
Perfect.
Well,
Yeah.
it's so much fun.
It will be interesting because I also I got the bird rings, so I yeah, I did, and I built 7 more hoopoe nest boxes, so I can just feel the data coming. I can
Oh,
just
boy.
feel it pouring. So also maybe
That's a migration.
probably yeah, probably not this year. Probably this year I'm just gonna be ringing the small guys in the nest box. So just taking them out, put the ring on them, put them back. But maybe next year it will be possible to get a mist net, and then it will be also cool to get some research and going on about those bird songs. It was like do something similar to what the guys a couple of years ago did to the bird songs here also. So
we should do actually a nature one of our Thursdays on specifically on drawing bird song, and also be neat to sort of share with people some recording and bird sort of sonogram analysis low-cost software so that you can kind of get recordings of birds and then translate those into kind of the computer version of the picture of those songs, and how to we can do some really neat kind of just bioacoustical analysis on our own with technology that you all probably already have in your house.
yeah, it was it actually interesting that that thing you said. I had the same thing happen to me a couple of like a week ago. I heard a bird that I didn't know of, and I recorded the audio of it, and I recorded it and I sent it to my friend who's a bird watcher, and he didn't know exactly what song was it also. And so he sent it to some expert, and he sent me an email of I said that I knew it was a crossbill, but I didn't know which species specifically of the crossbills. So he sent me like these images of the sonograms of the crossbill songs. So there were 2 different species that he had narrowed it down, and then there was my audio. So we kind of compared those images with my audio, and it turned out to be a parrot crossbill. So that was
really
very, very interesting.
I want to bring in just a couple of our participants on this. Anne and Nicholas, I'd love to add both of you in. So Anne is Point Blue Conservation Science, and Nicholas is a
an ornithologist and researcher. I'd love to kind of get any thoughts or comments or observations about what we're seeing here. I'm seeing just this the growth of the science mind here is so exciting.
It's very exciting. I'm loving this. And in fact, I'm so privileged that today I got to go for a hike in Truckee with Matt Ryder from Point Blue Conservation Science, who runs the entire migratory shorebird research project that covers 13 nations along the Pacific coast. And so we were just talking about how that research is being done internationally, what it means, what it means for conservation and for advancing, kind of worldwide cooperation. And Nicholas, he thinks he might know you because he worked up in Churchill for quite a while, and he was researching snow geese and Canada geese and Arctic foxes and lemmings and how they all interact and what happens. So I'm going to connect the two of you.
Excellent.
By email, if that's okay.
Yes, I know some of the folks over there, and they are very very insightful. I learn a lot from them. But to also for Walters, I just congratulate you to really push everything that you are wondering about. It's really like that curiosity that you keep digging, and you will find new things. You will, like, if you continue for the bioacoustic aspect, you will find not only the dialect, but you can see, oh, this individual is always singing at that time of the day, and this one is not, and this one is singing just that point. You love that perch, and then when this guy comes, the other one comes too, and then they fight over a song. It's a nice way to see, for a lot of scientists, to map the territories. So for example, if you see a rare bird or you hear a rare bird, it's maybe the best way for you to find where is its nest, where it's its territory. So it's very key for a lot of research to be able to have the ear for the birds. Yes.
And when at some point you'll find yourself birding in a tropical environment, and in places where there's dense canopy, like 80% of the bird ID or more is done actually by ear. And so starting to kind of develop that ear, and it's such a critical naturalist skill. Just jazz.
Yeah, the bird sounds are really tough to learn. There are some of the easy ones that coincidentally we have some of the bird songs. Some of the birds say their species name in their song. So we have this bird called kivite, and its song goes like kivit, kivit, vit, vit, kivit. So it's really interesting, and we have this bird called the swirlitis, and its song also goes swir. So those songs are easy to learn, but some of the warblers go like.
And we call this one the
larks.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. Out here, you know how you have the tits in California, in the United States, we call tits chickadees because they go chickadee, chickadee. So we name that same. We instead of saying it's tit, we go chickadee. Oh, that's so much fun.
Yeah.
Hey, thank you so much for sharing that. That's really exciting.
Thank you.
And I put this into the chat, but you might also want to check out Teresa and Miles Tufley, and have a website. Walters, I think you might like it. It's called I'm Birding Right Now. And they take amazing photographs, but they also record bird song, and they share it with the Cornell Lab of Ornithology. And so they have all these great recordings, and they also talk about, how that's used in research. And they might be good guests on this show, Jack, with you.
Send me their contact information. I
will.
love to.
Yeah, for sure. And then one more thing. this is what happens when you come up to Truckee, is you get to, play with beautiful pine cones. So this is what I picked up on my hike this morning.
Is that Jeffrey?
You know what? I'm not sure. Yeah.
Oh, that's lovely.
So that'll be tonight's sketching project.
Oh, that'll keep you occupied.
Yeah. Keep up the good work, Walters.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's jump over to our friend Ray Bonto and see what he is up to. It's good to see you.
First of all, before I start sharing, I just recommend something. It's not exactly nature journaling, but it's more of a physics thing.
Yes.
Check out the theory of relativity. It's quite cool. It's like if you travel at light speed, time will stop for you and it will slow down. Yeah. And you would look thinner if you travel at light speed. I mean, not like normal. I mean, you would really look thinner. That's one of the effects.
Yeah.
And
you're right. And it is so weird to think of things like time as
time dilation.
Yeah, as not being a constant. It's wonderful, fascinating, mind-bending stuff. Have you come up on a good source of learning about relativity?
I'm trying to learn about it. That's all I know about it. Like,
I would check out stuff from Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Yeah, I've watched his movies. Yeah.
He does a good job of sort of breaking down some of those things. He
does.
Oh yeah, and it is so wild to if you find a really good source for kind of doing a deep dive on relativity, share that with our group here. That sounds it's fun to see that you're kind of getting into the aspects of physics, and it has everything to do with nature journaling also. I would say that as nature journalers, when Einstein was when Einstein was thinking about these ideas, a lot of his work was done by sort of imagining pictures and imagining events. So it ends up being very, very visual. These ideas of like if you're in the space capsule and you accelerate this to relativistic speeds, right? What happens? Then you're bending time, density, all these sorts of things that. If you can come up with a way of sketchnoting these ideas, I would love to see any sketch notes that you do of starting to kind of dig into relativity.
This is a very odd thing about time dilation. I mean, not a thing. I mean it. So when on one mission from the moon. When the people got out of the rocket when they came back to Earth, they found that their clock had slowed down by a few seconds, which meant they were a few seconds younger than if they had stayed on Earth.
That's right. And it's weird that things like that are measurable. So when they're thinking about orbiting satellites and all that sort of stuff, that we've got our this sort of technology, this stuff, we're not the level of precision that we need to kind of get all of our satellites in orbits. Sort of Newtonian physics is not sufficient. You need to be thinking about relativity. So the predictions from relativity are measurable and testable, and it's so cool to think of, like, mass bending light and time. It is so far outside of our experience that time is not a constant. Because in our everyday experience it is, except we kind of maybe experience a little bit of dilation, like when we're really bored with something, or and like time seems to go forever. When you've got a toothache, time slows down. But maybe they were talking about a different thing.
The speed of light. So if you travel at rocket speed, you would slow down a few seconds. The faster you travel, and the closer you travel towards speed c, which is light speed, which is 300,000 kilometers per second, the closer you travel to that speed, the more time will slow down. And when you hit light speed, time will stop.
That's right. And so if you had a telescope and you're looking back to Earth, you would see all those people just going generations passing like this. And them looking at you, they would see you. Right? Sorry, I just had to go really fast there. And then if you then came back if you just went away really fast and then came back, when you came back, like it's a different planet now because everybody that you knew has aged, died, and it's now 30 generations later, which would be a bummer.
Terrible, yes. Yeah, but anyway, so I did this.
Oh, that one with the little highlight on it. That's really cool. Look at that. Yeah, very good. Very, you had to really focus on those details to be able to make those notes.
Yeah. And I've got a few nature journal pages.
We'd love to see them.
So this was on Friday. Here are a few pigeons I decided to sketch. And then later, from Sunday, I think. Monday. I saw one with brown secondaries, a pigeon.
Oh, yes. The other day when my computer gave out, I wasn't able to see these. But there you've got those white primaries and the brown secondaries. And you also remember you discovered you had a wren that you encountered.
It's here.
Oh, look at that little tail sticking up. That's so wrenny.
I saw a squirrel. I saw a few blackbirds.
Maybe hold the screen for us a little bit.
I was just looking at blackbirds when I saw a brown thing hopping about, and it turned out to be the wren. This drawing is actual size.
I believe it. There's such a diminutive little birds. For Nicholas or Vultures or anybody who's ever had a wren in their hand, you feel like there's nothing there. There's just there. It's such, it weighs less. It's just. You think with all that fluff, there's going to be something chunky there, but most of that's just little fluff. They're so light. Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah, and here the pigeons fighting. I was just planning to put the whole page with sketches and a few labels about, and it filled it up with notes. The whole page, the fight.
That's the way we observe. That's exciting.
And here I used pencil, and because I can. It's spiral binding, and so I decided to use a glue and water. I put some water with a water brush and rubbed a glue stick on it. Though I recommend you use the spray. Yes, and now look.
Ah,
It doesn't smudge.
oh, that's good to know. That's that. What an innovative way to kind of create your own fixative from water and a glue stick.
Yeah, and here I saw the one with the brown secondaries and the white primary again. Here I saw that one with the white cap.
It's neat how you kind of now can spot these ones as individuals. And those birds just have such a pigeon shape to them.
So not exactly individuals, but yeah, just different types. Yeah, and breeding things. Yeah, and um, yeah. Now this was the coolest bit. I was cycling down the street. I saw something red, which looked a bit like a rag, but it didn't. It looked a bit like a bone, with some meat on it. But I decided to just leave it out and go on. But then I changed my mind and decided to turn back and have a closer look at it. It looked like a rag, but it turned out to be a pigeon carcass.
Ooh.
I mean, only a little bit of the bones, and there was a little bit of meat on it, and it was covered in blood.
Oh,
And a
wow.
few feathers were on it too. So, yeah.
I wonder what did the eating there. That's really cool.
That's this question.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What a fun discovery.
And then.
And you can see that on the wing bone there you've got, looks like so it has the skin and sort of been pulled off the tip of it. It looks like we're seeing the forearm, the radius on the ulna, and the little bird hand there.
Oh, it was attached.
Yeah.
Because I would have drawn a detailed thing, but I couldn't stand sketching for too long on the street.
That I'm glad that safety first when we're drawing. Yeah, you don't want to become another bump in the road.
And so I went out sketching stuff again, and I saw a magpie.
Those are such gorgeous birds.
I decided to cut it, just do the black in a ballpoint pen and cover it all with blue for the iridescent. So it turns out to be this great effect. With, of course, some paints. With some paints.
I really like the way you are drawing, the level of detail that you're putting in. You are drawing what you see at that range instead of drawing what you're supposed to see.
And you remember that small little bird I showed you? That gray bird which I couldn't identify, and it was just gray. Yeah. I heard the same shrieks again. And I looked up. I saw it gray. I had my binoculars with me, but I couldn't. But it was the lighting, and I ran towards a place where I could find the lighting fine. And when I looked back, the bird was gone, and that happened 3 times before
we're gonna keep looking for that thing, and eventually you're going to get that thing in perfect light because you now know the sound.
Oh, watch out! And then it came out in perfect light, and I got to sketch it. It turned out to be a blackbird.
Oh.
And I never knew a blackbird could shriek like that.
Yeah, and again, the blackbird that Ray Bonto is looking at is different than the blackbirds that we have here in the United States. Our blackbirds are icterids, so they are related to, well, our blackbirds. The blackbird that he's looking at is a thrush. And so in Europe, when they say blackbird, they're talking about a thrush. That's really cool. Well, that's a good looking bird.
Then I just decided to sketch some more. Now I got tired of sketching birds, so I decided to sketch some mammals. I saw a squirrel, so I decided to a few squirrels, so I decided to sketch them. These are not these are just sketches of the different positions they all made.
Those really feel squirrely, don't they, everybody? When you look at those just have you feel squirrelness. You understand those different sort of parts of the body and that bend in the back. Yep.
Yeah, I saw that brown pigeon again, and this brown spotty one, and this one with the iridescent spots. But today, toned gray.
Oh boy.
And so I saw that brown pigeon again. I saw a pied wagtail.
Oh, now isn't that a fun thing to put on toned paper?
Yeah, I mean, I sketched it from memory. I saw it when I was going to the park, and I couldn't sketch in the middle of a pavement, so I decided to just sketch it from memory. And then I decided to sketch a back view of another pied wagtail I saw in the park. And then there was that strange pigeon again, the one with the stripy one, like that.
Hey, I'd like to bring Walters in on this conversation about toned paper here. If I could, I'm going to add Walters in on our spotlight here. So both of you now have a lot of experience using toned paper. And I would, for people who are thinking of experimenting with this, what suggestions would you have for people in the community here who might like maybe I want to try this, but might be a little bit tentative about it? What are some of your favorite things about it? What do you think is going to get them hooked?
So I think that how it's just different from what we usually see. So usually we see birds in field guides, for example, on white paper, and the colors, I just love on toned paper that the colors just pop out, and the white on toned paper is just, that's the best thing. Probably that's the best thing.
Do you have a wagtail up there where you are?
Wagtails?
Yeah.
Yes, we have.
Yeah, that just seems like it would be just a party on toned paper. Ray Bonto, what was just that little sketch that you have, like the back view of that of that one with that back view of the wagtail, where you just kind of head to turn a little bit, you've got the white just on one side. You can get so much so quickly. And things like the white really pop out, but we don't really see that when we're just drawing on white paper. But you're able to make that really pop.
My suggestions are, I really recommend toned paper, and it's fun to add white, especially the white pencil for me. I usually do squash, but I decided to have a change today. And if you could get a sewn or spiral bound sketchbook of toned paper, or you could just get these separate sheets and cut them out and paste them.
I love the way your birds kind of cross over, right? So that they're partly on the toned paper there and partly off.
Yeah. And yeah, toned paper is extremely a great tool.
Yeah, so it will be basically just go for it. So for example, these are the all toned paper sketchbooks, but maybe for starters, even this is my older nature journal, and this here is just all white. These were all white pages, right? But at the back here, I just took out some tone paper and put in it at the back. So maybe that's for starters. And if you feel like you enjoy it, and then just a full-on tone paper sketchbook is. So I just do like, I get a white paper sketchbook. I get tired of it. I switch to tone paper. It gets a bit boring. Then I get white paper, switch it up again. So I'm just the new sketch. So the next sketchbook, when I fill this up, will be on white paper again. So.
Right.
Yeah, yeah, you could get those separate sheets and paste them, and that's a nice way if you want a toned sketchbook with both toned and tan. I mean white and toned paper. Yeah, and the great thing about using that is that you could include as many colors of tone as you want.
That's a good point.
Whereas in a normal sketchbook, you only get brown or gray. Yeah.
Yeah, something to be aware with on toned paper. Thank you both for those comments and ideas. Something just to think about when you are getting toned paper is just to do a test and see if it really darkens if you put water on it. So some kinds of toned paper, when you put water on them, you immediately see a dark, like think about a brown paper bag. You put a drop of water on it and you see that little dark spot. If you're painting and you've got water on your brush and that is going on, you're going to think that you have some dark values there, but really it's just wet paper. And then your paper dries and all your dark values go away. So not all paper really darkens that much when you hit it with water. So just do a little bit of testing, and if you find it really darkens, there's a big darkening effect, then just get a different type of tone paper.
Yeah, that's true. And tone paper may be a bit at the starting for me it was a bit of a mess. You'll get a bit you might struggle with the white, or you might have a hard time getting in colors, but you get used to it, and it'll get better with practice.
Excellent.
Yeah, like this one. It's like it comes very where did it go? Anyways, it comes very quickly. Like this is a start. It's a bit messy at first, like this, and so quickly, and just after a few sketches, so quickly, it got fine.
That's inspiring. That's inspiring. It's those pencil miles, right? It's those
Yeah.
pencil miles. Hey, thank you so much for sharing that.
Anyways, back here. So I was decided to go on sketching squirrels because I want mammals. I saw a blackbird. I decided to sketch it before it flew away. I saw the wren again. A wren, I mean not the individual. I saw a stock dove. And I decided to write what I think these are the abbreviations. A wood pigeon. I think these are the abbreviations.
Great. So using 4-letter codes.
Yeah.
That's great. Thank you so much. This is so exciting to see what is capturing your curiosity and interest in how you're pursuing that. I do want to encourage you to try some relativity sketch notes too. I think that you'd have a ton of fun taking those ideas and turning them into storyboards. I'm going to jump over to Avea, who had something to share.
Oh, just that you've given me some things I'm going to definitely be working on with leaves. I've been working on this page off and on for the past week, so you might have already seen parts of it. But when you'd mentioned the gel pen, it made me think that's sort of what I tried to do to emphasize the edge of this one leaf that's breaking the frame here, which is a manzanita leaf. And I kind of wondered, like when you said that it's easy to go crazy on the gel pen, I just wanted to say, yes, it is. You can go crazy on the gel pen the way Christopher Walken goes crazy on the cowbell, and it can just wind up being
More cowbell. Yeah.
Yep, always more cowbell. And then using that for like to symbolize where diseases of the leaves are, or like the shine.
Oh yes, I love the new buds of hope. What a wonderful little comment.
Thank you. And then, yeah, trying to get that one edge of the leaf can be really difficult. Like the part where it gets skinny can be a challenge. And so sometimes I'm not brave enough yet to try as many off the side, but I think I'm going to start trying that. So like, you know, different, or like noticing, now I'm beginning to notice what you said about the different angles, the way that one will be angled a little bit skinnier than the other one's a bit bigger. So that helps a lot. And then now I have more things to try to figure out with the weeds. What helped me with this one, I didn't do it for this leaf, but I learned better on this one, was to block it in the way you teach us. So then it was a lot easier to make sure that the lobes pointed towards the center.
Yes.
How you taught us.
Yeah.
Which helped.
If you're just trying to kind of get the lobes to point the right way, and you start on one side and you kind of go around the circle, my pencil just starts going off in some weird angle, and it doesn't meet back at the same place the way I want it to.
Yeah, mine did the same thing, which was challenging. So it really did help to block them in. And I'm gonna have to remember to make that part of my practice like as much as possible.
It's just so sensitively done, and just like these little details of where like the little ligules on the grasses and what that little zoom in, so useful there. I love seeing the basal leaves on these. This is just so just full of attention and tender. Absolutely. Like each little, I feel like your pencil is a little ant walking along the edge of the leaf, nibbled here, turning there. And it goes from a generic plant to this individual.
I just wanted to thank you because I already know I've been improving based off of what you've been teaching. I remember that years ago, if I were to try to draw a leaf that came up like this, I wouldn't have been able to. I would have drawn it making like some sort of a weird, like sort of off to the side thing that didn't really look proper. Yeah. And being able to draw like that made more sense. Or then drawing the weird angle of this particular part of the vetch. I had some weird things with the vein on this one here. I think this might be a dock of some kind, a rumex. And so I'm still like wondering, is that really how it looked? And so I've decided if I can't tell, I'm still going to blame the plant, like you said. So that helped.
Yep.
And another thing that you taught a while ago that I really appreciated was you taught us that when a leaf is coming toward us, you make it so that the line weight on the part coming toward us is heavier. And that helped make it less confusing, like on this one for me, when I was trying to draw it. I still need more work trying to figure out how to make the undersides more realistic, because I know that the veins on the underside sometimes pop a little bit more, and I'm still trying to figure out how to do the texture of that. But I just really appreciate your tips and just a lot of the ways that they've helped me figure out.
This is a wonderful, wonderful collection. It's neat how it makes just these sort of common things that are just normally underfoot, it turns them into just a treasure, something special.
Yeah, it does. So thank you for that. And I'm going to have to practice more on these ones, because I think tomorrow when I go to the site, I'm going to finally get to tackle this one plant that I'm sort of terrified of, and that's the poison hemlock. I'd meant to do it last week, but then the manzanitas wound up being my priority. And I'm terrified of the poison hemlock for a few reasons. One reason, because of course they're poison. I mean, Socrates found that out firsthand. But the other reason is because the leaves are scary.
Some help on that decision.
Yes. The other reason is because this is a bird chervil, I want to say. But this, or bird chervil, but this is like considered minor compared to what the hemlock leaves are like. I mean, this is, yeah, the hemlock leaves are, they're not pinnately compound. They're not even always bipinnately compound. They can be tri or quadrupinnately compound. And I'm just looking at them, I'm like, oh my God, it's like trying to draw lace. And then on top of that, thinking about then like what we learned today about it coming toward you, I'm like, oh, but pencil miles.
Pencil miles. And also what's cool, that everybody notice here that Avea is actively looking for where her growth edge is, right? So she's saying that I want to do these because they'll be challenging for me and it's going to like bend my mind in all sorts of directions. You don't want to jump into something that is going to bend your mind so much that you get discouraged and walk away from it. But she's intentionally working outside of her comfort zone. And that is where the magic happens, right? So intentionally go there. So not just what's comfortable. This is, and it's just a little bit scary, but okay, let's do that. That practice that does several things. One, it's going to help you get better more quickly. It also, that little bit of risk actually helps your brain get into a flow state more easily. So something to consider.
I'm excited about that because the other thing that's helpful is that tomorrow is Friday. And so every Friday it's Fearless Friday, which means that no matter how many mistakes I make, I'll be able to have something to post, which I'm really excited about.
There you go.
but just like, yeah, I feel like it endears me more to the plant when I have to struggle with its growth and how are we going to do this? And
Leslie's reminding us of the power of yet. And that's great. Absolutely.
I also started my project of taking all my photos of the poison oak and the poison hemlock around it and uploading it to iNaturalist so that now people will think, don't step off the path. I'll get poison oak on my skin.
Oh, no. That's great.
So hopefully this will save the manzanitas.
Absolutely. And thank you for being a steward of those little beasties.
My pleasure.
Let's jump over to Nicholas, and then I'm going to have to bounce. Oops, there we are. It's really good to see you.
Hi again. It's so nice to also talk to you and meet everybody, even though it's not in reality, but I hope soon. And I wanted to share that with you. So we have been very lucky the past, I think now 2 weeks. We have been like harboring a group of a flock of snowbunting, about 100 now individuals.
Oh boy.
Are coming every morning, every evening, and in the middle of the day. They are actually still flying around. And if they are coming back on the window, I will turn the camera and try to.
We want to see. Oh,
but
that's so special.
I've been quite shy at trying to draw them, been observing more at the beginning, and then also trying to band them on their way to migration into the Arctic tundra. So we barely know nothing about their migration path. And then since they are insectivore birds, we think they are declining, but we don't know how much. And so we try to track that with the banding effort. But that was also something about observing them to draw that made me realize something that I never saw on the snowbunting before, even though I've been studying them for quite some time now in the tundra, is that the on the beak here, the upper mandibula is smaller, way smaller than the lower one. And the way it's bent also in between, there's a curve upside at the very end. In fact, the first time I draw it, I just draw a straight line, and then by re-observing it, and it was, in fact, it's going upwards. And then my wife came with a very nice idea that this was actually like a spoon effect on this beaks, and then that's maybe helping them gather some of the seeds on their way to migration. And even though they are turning to being insectivorous birds in the north, so maybe that's helping them getting both worlds at the same time.
Oh, what fun! It's interesting how it reminds me of takes your brain in these such creative directions. It's such a powerful tool for creative thinking.
And then the other thing also, I was fascinated to see them landing because they come very up close. We have like from the living room, we see them just landing a couple of meters away, and then we can really see all the details, and they are able to really just like hummingbirds stay almost up in the air and then have this crazy curve in the tip of the wings. And that reminds me even of the exercise we did today with the leaves, how much we can actually think about how the feathers can bend and what shape they should have, or compared to what we are able to see, even though it's a bit fast, but it's not that fast that we can see them when we look at them. So it's something that was funny to try. And then also even on the feathers on the tail, there's a curve as well, so that we see the front here and they see the back of it. And I don't think I've seen that before in many other birds.
And this is also just neat to see that your brain is also zooming in and zooming out. So there's back view, close up, flight, medium view, far away view. By intentionally putting all those together, you're forcing your brain to kind of play in all of these different directions. That's so cool. That's really, really exciting.
So I learned a lot also from the last class about, getting away from the rectangle or the focus we have and try to just have something coming out on the side, for instance.
The little one broke the box.
Yeah, so something like that. And I never tried to paint flocks of birds from a distance and being frustrated by how poor the shapes can be. It's driven by the size of your pencil. But I tried, and it's a good exercise, I think.
Yeah, and another reason why is, and would you agree with Ray Bonto and Walter's toned paper? So much fun.
Yes, yeah, that was for me just difficult to stop not putting even more white everywhere.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that, and also thank you for your work on researching these animals to help us be able to kind of come up with policy that is informed by data. Evidence matters, and
I wanted to share maybe something completely out of what I presented before, but that is related to what Walters was saying earlier.
Yes,
it's about being crazy about listening to bird songs, and then I wanted to show a device that we use in our lab that is like the size of a Visa card or MasterCard, and that is able to record for a very long time just everything that is making a sound. And that's, you just put the battery on the other side, you put your card in, and then you have a special box to protect it from the elements. And then you put it in there. You have the microphone linked to this, and then it's you put it there, and then you can have the recording for the whole summer when you do, for example, a study, or if you, for example, for Walters, if he has nest boxes.
Yes. So this is a remote, like people put out remote cameras. This is a remote ear.
Yes.
I didn't know those existed. That's really cool. That's
it's a fantastic tool, and we are trying to put them everywhere possible to study even more what's happening.
And if there are periods of silence, is it cutting those out? So only when birds are starting to sing?
No, so that's bring a lot of effort to go through all the data. But what we do also is to use artificial intelligence to go through the recordings to help us, and then also save our time to really put the question where it matters. And then we can really,
because I was thinking that if we're collecting all those things real time, then you would have to sit there and wait through that same thing. So you might as well just be out there in the field in your lawn chair.
Exactly.
But so you're using AI to
analyze those and kind of get a first kind of blush of the patterns. That's really cool. Thank you very much for sharing that.
Thank you.
So, my friends, I am going to have to I'm going to have to leave, so we're going to bring this call to a close. If you didn't get a chance to share this round, we hope that we can connect with you in the future. We really appreciate people bringing to the screen here and sharing your inspirations and ideas. Remember that all of this is a skill that you can develop through practice. The more you do it, the better and better it's going to get. You get better at listening. You get better at asking questions. You get better at sketching pigeons. You get better at drawing leaves. Those pencil miles, what we're doing here is we're not just training our eyes to be able to draw pictures of nature. We're training our eye to see the world around us. The journal is a tool, that allows you to look beyond the point where you usually just stop paying attention. And as you do that, the mysteries of the world will unfold before you. And in this short, beautiful life that we have, there's just so much wonder and glory around us. We can be inspired by that and then motivated to become stewards to protect it. So thank you all for being here.
Thank you very much, John. It was exciting.
Well, thank you so much.
Hope I hear you again.
I look forward to it. Take care, my friends.